Well, hello and welcome to my latest video back in the workshop, and I thought I'd do another one in my series of bicycle maintenance with a fairly average mechanic only. Right, today, special treat. I am not the fairly average mechanic. I have found an even more average mechanic, man by the name of Bob Jimmy, and he's going to take you through this particular essential piece of bike maintenance. So come with me, let's go and meet Bob Jimmy and let's get stuck in. Howdy. I must say I am honoured to be invited to join one of Julian's videos as a pretty less than average mechanic. Bob Jimmy's the name, bicycle maintenance is the game, and what we're going to do today is how to lube your chain. Yes, now this is one of the key tasks that you need to do if you're a cyclist. Lubing, or lubing up as we call it in the trade, very important thing. Now you're going to need two items, so you don't have to buy a lot of stuff in order to do this particular topic, but the two things you're going to need is, one is a bicycle, ideally with a chain, because it's the chain that you're going to lube up as opposed to the bicycle itself. And the other thing you're going to need is some lube. Now I've got to say, if you have the lube but you don't have the bicycle and the chain, then you're probably looking at a different sort of video, Brian, and you're not going to get that on this channel. If you have the bicycle but you don't have any lube, then you're not going to be able to follow through on what I'm going to teach you today. So let's start off with the assumption, really broad assumption, I do accept that, that you have got a bicycle, it has got a chain on it, and you have got some lube. Now I've got some lube here, Julian always ready with his lube, and this particular lube is by a company called Muck-Off. Now I'm not sponsored by Muck-Off, I'm not sponsored by, this says C3 Ceramic Lube, I'm not sponsored by C3, whoever they are, I'm not sponsored by Ceramic, whoever they are, and nor am I sponsored by the Lube Marketing Company. So if the Lube Marketing Company, or anybody else for that matter, wants to sponsor Bob Jimmy, fairly pretty average mechanic, then please get in touch with my manager Julian Hutchings. But in the meantime, I've got the lube, and now let's see if we can find a bicycle. Come with me. There's no point staying there, is there? You got to come over here. You know, I mean, the camera doesn't move, you've got to move. Okay, I've put the bicycle on the stand, ready to do the lubing. This particular bicycle is a Molten, by the way. You don't need to use a Molten. You can use a Molten if you like, if you've got one, or you can get hold of one, perhaps borrow one from a friend. But if you haven't got a Molten, you can use any bicycle, so long as I said earlier, it's got a chain. Now we can see here, you can see the chain ring, and you can see this thing here that looks a bit like a chain. It looks a bit like a chain because it's a chain, and it is the chain that is going to be lubed. So let's get a bit closer, shall we? So what I'm going to do is I'm taking my lube, and here is my lube. This is my right hand, and I'm going to apply the lube to the chain. Okay, do you want to see me apply the lube to the chain? Right, first off, I'm going to have to remove the top of the lube. Okay, so make sure when you're following this, and if you want to do this by the numbers, number 1 was to get a bicycle, number 2 was to make sure the bicycle had a chain, number 3 was to get some lube, number 4 was to hold the lube in your right hand, number 5 was to take the top off, so we're at number 5 now, so number 6 is going to be the next action, and that action is going to be to apply the lube to the chain. And what we do is we do it to the lower part of the chain. Can you see here the lower part of the chain? And we then invert the lube. You see this? We're doing, this is lube tube inverting. This is known as lube tube inverting or tube lube inverting. Okay, it's a very important activity. We invert it at 90 degrees and then 180 degrees. And what happens is, as a result of gravity, obviously discovered by Newton, who also discovered lube, by the way, not many people know that, lube on his apples, we let the drip of the lube drip onto the chain. And the reason we do it on the lower part of the chain is because, as you may know, when the chain goes round, the lube will then be on the bottom as it goes along the top, whereas if we put the lube on the top of the chain here, as it goes around, it's just going to fall off. Because what we want the lube to do is to just lube and therefore grease or whatever the word is, lubricate. That's it. Sorry, the shortish version of lube escaped me there for a moment. We're going to lubricate the chain. Okay, so as the chain goes around, and let's make the chain go around, shall we turn the pedals, and you see that we're just letting a bit of lube go on the chain. All right, now you may not see much lube coming out, and the reason for that is this bottle of tube is actually empty. But you can imagine if there was lube in it, lube would come out. Okay, so that's gone on the chain, and now let's turn the pedals around. We're turning them backwards, as you can see, so we make sure that the lube gets all over in between these various links, you see, which is the lubrication that we need. All right, so I'm removing the lube now. Okay, you see the action that I'm doing. This, I think, is at number 8, is it, or number 9? I'm removing the lube away from the bicycle, and I'm going to put the cap on. We'll make that number 10, so I'll put the cap on while you're watching. There we are, replacing the cap of the lube and putting the lube back in its storage place. But always important to put it back in its storage place, perhaps a bedside table or wherever it is you normally keep your lube. And that's it. Now we've lubed the chain. Now the one thing that we should do next is back to me, Keith. Back to me. Okay, back to me, Keith. Thank you very much. Now what we don't want is excessive lube. And you may know from other experiences in your life that excessive lube is not a good thing. Now, the reason why we don't want excessive lube on the chain is because the lube is quite kind of sticky, quite, that sounds like a duck, doesn't it? Quite greasy, and as you go along, that attracts dirt. So what we want to do, the lube to do, is to lubricate the chain, but not to coat the chain in so much lube that then as you're riding along, you attract a whole load of dirt and filth and rubbish and so on and so forth that then sticks to your chain, and that's what makes it filthy. Okay, so we just take a cloth. I'm using, this is actually, you probably can't see it here, but this was a Pirates of the Caribbean. Actually, I don't know if you can see that. That was it. This was a Pirates of the Caribbean towel that I bought for a member of my family many years ago. Had a picture of Johnny Depp on it, but obviously now that has been removed, and the towel itself has been used on the bike lots of times, so you can't even see the Pirates of the Caribbean logo anymore. But anyway, I'm going to use this cloth. You don't need to use this cloth. You don't need to use something with a picture of Johnny Depp on it. You may choose to. You may choose to use a picture of some other alleged wife beater on if you can get one on your towel. But what we do is I just turn the camera around. Go, Keith, trying to follow here. So we're just holding the towel here on the chain and just running, as you can see, just running the chain through. Now you might think, well, he's just taking all the lube off. That's a stupid thing to do. No, I'm not taking the lube off. Back to me, Keith. Back to me. I'm not taking the lube off. What I'm doing is taking excess lube off because the lube itself has already filtered down into the little various chain links and the wheels and the pulleys and all the various other things that go to make up the chain and is lubricated. So I know it's only excess lube that I'm removing, which I think is, I've forgotten the numbering, but I expect you've written it down. So let's call that number 12. Always been one of my favourite numbers. And back to me, Keith, back to me. Oh, sorry, you're already on me, Keith. Well, let's stand up, shall we? Well, that's it. That's how you lube a chain. Glad to be of service, and I'll now hand you back to our Master of Ceremonies, Julian Hutchings. Hope to see you again. This is Bob Jimmy signing off. Just a little story for you. I used to have a dog, and that dog was so fierce, really fierce dog. It was so fierce it bit its own head off. Anyway, I've now got another dog, and hopefully the same thing won't happen. So nice to meet you. Hope to see you again. Back to Julian. Well, big thanks to Bob Jimmy, even more average mechanic than I am, for that special bike maintenance demonstration, how to lube your how to lube your chain. And make sure you tune in next time for another in the series of bicycle maintenance with fairly even more average mechanics. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.